The letter trembled in my hands as I sat behind the wheel, the familiar weight of my mother-in-law's judgment pressing heavily on my shoulders from the passenger seat. I'd found it tucked inside my wallet that morning, my late father-in-law's distinctive handwriting marking the envelope with a simple note, "For Willow, open after." "Watch the road, dear," Samra's voice cut through my thoughts, sharp and condescending as always. "We wouldn't want to end up in a ditch before we even reach the estate, would we? I'm Willow, and for the past 5 years, I've been the family disappointment, the girl who, in their eyes, stole their precious heir, Philip, away from his destined path of marrying someone more suitable. At least, that's how Samra sees it, her disdain for me as palpable as the crisp autumn air outside." "The roads are perfectly clear, Samra," I replied, my voice steady despite the urge to snap back at her. The 2-hour drive to the family estate had already felt like an eternity, and we were only halfway there, the silence between us thick with unspoken tension. She murmured, adjusting her designer scarf with a flourish, a move I'd come to recognize as the prelude to yet another critique. "I suppose you're used to these rural routes, though. So quaint, so rustic." I must say, it would have been far more appropriate for Philip to drive me himself. "Philip had the board meeting, as you well know," I said, gripping the steering wheel tighter, my wedding ring catching the morning light and glinting faintly. "He'll meet us there." The letter burned in my pocket, its weight both a mystery and a burden. I wouldn't dare open it with Samra's piercing eyes watching me. Harland, my father-in-law, had always been different from the rest of them. He'd seen me, truly seen me, beyond my small-town background and public school education, qualities that made me such an unsuitable match in Samra's judgmental gaze. "Did Harland ever mention anything to you?" Samra asked suddenly, her voice taking on an unusual edge that made me pause. "About the will, I mean." I kept my eyes fixed on the road, but my heart skipped a beat. "No. Why would he?" She laughed, that precise, practiced sound that always made me feel like I was being mocked. "Oh, darling, I was merely making conversation. Though, I must say, he did spend an unusual amount of time with you in those final months when he was so ill. He was sick. I helped care for him," I said, the words sharper than I intended, my patience wearing thin. "Yes, well, someone had to, I suppose," she replied, examining her manicured nails with exaggerated care. "Noel was busy with the London office, and I had the charity foundation to manage. Though, it does make one wonder about influences." The grand gates of the estate loomed into view, and I felt the familiar tightening in my chest. This place, with its sprawling lawns and imposing mansion, had never felt like home, despite Philip's insistence that it would eventually grow on me. As I pulled up to the circular drive, I spotted Noel's Mercedes already parked, gleaming under the morning sun. My sister-in-law stood on the steps, engaged in what appeared to be an intense conversation with Leon, the family lawyer. Finally, Samra sighed, gathering her belongings with a dramatic flourish. "Do try to park properly, dear. The gardeners get so upset when anyone disturbs their precious flower beds." I waited until she'd swept out of the car, her heels clicking on the pavement, before allowing myself a moment to breathe. My hand instinctively went to the letter in my pocket, but before I could even touch it, a sharp tap on my window made me jump. It was Reagan, an old family friend who'd always shown me kindness, his weathered face wearing an expression I couldn't quite decipher. "Mrs. Martin," he said softly, "might I have a word before you head inside?" I stepped out into the crisp morning air, the scent of fallen leaves swirling around us. "Of course, Reagan. Is everything all right?" He glanced toward the house, then back at me, his eyes serious. "Harland left something else for you, besides that letter." He pressed a small, cold key into my palm. "The study safe, behind the Monet painting. Whatever you find there, he wanted you to see it before the reading." "Reagan, I don't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Trust me, child," he replied, his tone urgent. "And whatever you do, don't let Samra know you have this." He squeezed my shoulder gently. "You'll need it soon enough." As he walked away, I stood frozen, the key burning in my hand like a secret too heavy to carry. Through the mansion's towering windows, I could see figures moving, gathering for what everyone assumed would be a simple reading of a traditional will. But something in Reagan's eyes, in the weight of that key, and in the letters still unopened in my pocket told me this day would be anything but simple. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and started toward the house, knowing that whatever awaited me inside would change everything. I just didn't know how much. The study felt smaller than I remembered, crowded with family members who seemed to be doing their best to avoid looking at me directly. I'd managed to slip away briefly before the reading, using the key Reagan had given me, but the safe had been empty, except for a single note in Harlan's handwriting, "Patience, little bird." "Shall we begin?" Leon's voice cut through the murmuring conversations, commanding attention. He stood behind Harlan's massive oak desk, looking every bit the proper family lawyer in his tailored suit. Noelle brushed past me to claim the leather armchair nearest the desk, shooting me a look that could freeze hell itself. "Some of us have actual business to return to," she muttered. Philip squeezed my hand as we settled onto the antique love seat, his face weary from the board meeting that had kept him away. Samra, naturally, had positioned herself in Harlan's chair, a move that wasn't lost on anyone in the room, a silent declaration of her assumed authority. Before we proceed, Leon began, adjusting his glasses with deliberate care. I should note that there have been some recent amendments to the will. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Samra's perfectly maintained smile twitched. "Amendments?" she asked, her voice sharp as a blade. "When exactly were these made?" 2 weeks before Harlan's passing, Leon replied, removing a thick envelope from his briefcase. "All properly witnessed and notarized, I assure you." "Get on with it, then," Noelle snapped, checking her phone for the 100th time, her impatience palpable. Leon cleared his throat. "To my beloved wife, Samra, I leave our residence in London and an annual allowance of..." I tried to focus, but the words began to blur together as Leon read through the standard bequests, art collections, properties, trust funds, all the trappings of old money being distributed exactly as everyone had expected. And finally, Leon paused, his eyes flickering to me for just a moment. "To my daughter-in-law, Willow, I leave my controlling interest in Grant Industries, effective immediately upon my death." The silence that followed was deafening, the air thick with shock and disbelief. "That's impossible," Samra's voice shook with barely contained rage. "There must be some mistake." "I assure you, there isn't," Leon said, producing another document. Mr. Grant was very specific about this provision. Noelle had gone pale, her phone forgotten in her lap. "She can't. She doesn't know the first thing about running a company." "I taught her," a quiet voice came from the doorway. Reagan stood there, looking somehow both sad and satisfied. "Harlan asked me to, these past 2 years, while you were all too busy to notice." Philip's hand had gone slack in mine. I turned to look at him, but his face was unreadable, a mask of conflicting emotions. "This is outrageous." Samra stood so quickly her chair scraped against the hardwood floor, the sound jarring in the tense silence. "She manipulated him when he was sick, vulnerable." "That's enough, Mother." Philip's voice was quiet but firm, cutting through her tirade. "Dad knew exactly what he was doing." "Did he?" Noelle laughed, but it sounded hollow, brittle. "Did you know about this, Philip? Were you in on this little coup?" I found my voice at last, steady despite the chaos swirling around me. "No one was in on anything. I had no idea." "Oh, spare us the innocent act." Samra's eyes were cold, glittering with malice. "You've been planning this from the start, haven't you? Worming your way into his good graces while we were all managing the actual business. The business that's been hemorrhaging money under your management?" Reagan stepped fully into the room now, his voice calm but cutting. "The one Harlan watched you nearly run into the ground with your vanity projects and mismanagement? How dare you?" Samra began, but Leon cut her off, holding up another paper. "There's more," he said, his tone measured. "A letter to be read in the event that anyone contests this decision." The threat hung in the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Whatever was in that letter, Samra clearly didn't want it read. She sank back into her chair, her lips pressed into a thin, trembling line. Well, Noelle stood, gathering her designer bag with a flourish. I suppose congratulations are in order, dear sister-in-law. Do try not to destroy our family legacy too quickly. As she stalked out, Samra following close behind, I caught a glimpse of them exchanging looks that made my blood run cold. Philip muttered something about needing air and left too, leaving me alone with Leon and Reagan. There are papers you'll need to sign, Leon said gently, his professionalism unwavering despite the drama. And there will be an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. Reagan moved closer, his voice low and urgent. You'll need to watch your back now, child. They won't take this lying down. I nodded, my fingers finding the empty safe note in my pocket. Patience, little bird. Whatever Harland had planned, whatever storm was coming, I had a feeling this was only the beginning. I'm ready, I said, straightening my spine. Show me what I need to sign. The memory hit me like a wave as I sat in Harland's old office, now technically mine. 2 years ago, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, everything had started to change. Come in, little bird, Harland had called out when I'd brought him his afternoon tea. He'd been sitting in the same leather chair I now occupied, looking out over the estate's sprawling gardens, their colors muted by the drizzle. Tell me, what do you see when you look at all this? I'd hesitated, setting down the tea tray carefully. I see, something beautiful, but it's starting to crack at the edges. He'd laughed then, a warm, genuine sound so different from his wife's practiced titter. Exactly. You see what they don't want to see. A knock at my office door pulled me back to the present. Reagan entered, carrying a stack of files, his expression grim. Found these in Harland's private safe at the London office, he said, placing them on my desk. You'll want to read them carefully. I opened the first file and my breath caught in my throat. Financial records, dating back 3 years, showing systematic fund transfers to offshore accounts. Samra, I asked, though I already knew the answer. Reagan nodded. And Noelle. They've been siphoning money through the charity foundation for years. Harland discovered it 6 months before his death. Why didn't he stop them? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He needed proof, Reagan replied, settling into the chair across from me. Concrete evidence that would stand up in court. That's when he started teaching you about the business through me. He knew they'd never suspect you. The door burst open and Philip stormed in, his face a storm of emotions. Were you ever going to tell me? Tell you what? I stood, startled by the intensity of his anger. About the private lessons with Reagan. About Dad grooming you to take over. His voice cracked slightly, betraying the hurt beneath his frustration. I'm your husband, Willow. We're supposed to trust each other. I didn't know what the lessons were for, I said softly, my heart aching at his distress. Harland just said everyone should understand the family business. I thought he was trying to help me fit in. Reagan cleared his throat, his voice steady. Your father knew you had no interest in running the company, Philip. You've said it yourself countless times. That's not the point. Philip ran his hands through his hair, frustration radiating from him. Mother's threatening to contest the will. Noelle's already called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. They're going to try to force you out. I picked up one of the files, my resolve hardening. Let them try, Philip. Let them try. I handed him the file. Your father left me more than just the company. He left me the truth. Philip's face went pale as he read, his eyes scanning the damning numbers. This can't be right. Mother would never. She did, Reagan said grimly. And your sister helped. The Foundation's books are a mess of creative accounting. They've stolen millions. A soft knock interrupted us. Leon entered, his expression grave. We have a problem. The private vault at the bank, it's been emptied. Reagan spun around. When? This morning, Leon said, adjusting his glasses nervously. Samra had access. The original documents, Reagan muttered, his voice heavy with realization. Harland kept the originals there. My heart sank, but then I remembered the empty safe and Harland's note, patience, little bird. He must have known this would happen. It doesn't matter, I said, standing straighter. These copies are certified, and I'm willing to bet there's a paper trail a mile long if we look hard enough. Philip was still staring at the financial records, his voice barely audible. I can't believe they would do this. Believe it, Reagan said, his tone resolute. Your father did. That's why he made sure Willow would have the power to make it right. Another knock, and this time it was Noelle who entered without waiting for a response. She froze when she saw us all gathered there, her eyes narrowing. Well, isn't this cozy? Having a little family meeting without Mother and me. Just reviewing some interesting documents, I replied, watching her carefully. About the foundation's finances. The slight twitch in her perfectly composed face told me everything I needed to know. The board meeting's been moved up, she announced, recovering quickly. Tonight at 8. Don't be late, dear sister-in-law. It would look unfortunate if you missed your first meeting as controlling shareholder. After she left, Philip turned to me, his expression a mix of worry and determination. What are you going to do? I looked at the files spread across the desk, then at Reagan and Leon. Harland had given me the weapons I needed. Now I just had to be brave enough to use them. I'm going to do exactly what your father wanted, I said, my voice steady. I'm going to save this company, even if it means taking down your mother and sister to do it. The sun was setting outside the office windows, casting long shadows across the room. In a few hours, I'd face the board and my family with the truth Harland had entrusted to me. I wouldn't let him down. The boardroom felt like a gladiator arena as I took my seat at the head of the table. 12 pairs of eyes watched my every move, most of them hostile, their skepticism practically tangible. Samra and Noelle sat together on the right, both wearing identical expressions of barely concealed disdain, their confidence unshaken despite the evidence mounting against them. Before we begin, Samra's voice sliced through the tension, smooth and commanding. I moved to discuss the validity of the recent changes in leadership. The will has been verified, Leon interjected from his corner, his tone firm. Multiple times. Nevertheless, Noelle chimed in, tapping her manicured nails against the polished table. We have concerns about competency. I opened my laptop, connecting it to the projector with deliberate calm. Speaking of competency, let's discuss the Foundation's financial reports. That's not on the agenda, Samra snapped, her composure slipping for a moment. It is now, I said, pulling up the first spreadsheet as controlling shareholder. The room went quiet as numbers filled the screen, red flags everywhere, mysterious transfers, inconsistent bookkeeping, funds vanishing into thin air. I clicked through each damning slide, watching Samra's face grow increasingly pale, her mask of control cracking. These records are incomplete, Noelle declared, but her voice wavered, betraying her uncertainty. Actually, Reagan spoke up from the doorway, making several board members jump. They're quite complete. The forensic accountants just finished their preliminary review. Samra's chair scraped back, the sound harsh in the tense silence. This meeting is over. Sit down, Mother. Philip's quiet command surprised everyone, his voice steady despite the storm brewing in the room. He hadn't said a word since we'd entered. Let us hear everything. I clicked to the next slide, my voice steady as I laid out the truth. Over the past 3 years, approximately $23 million have been diverted from company funds through the charitable foundation. The money was then moved through a series of shell companies before ending up in private accounts in the Cayman Islands. You can't prove any of this. Noelle hissed, her composure crumbling. Actually, we can, Reagan said, dropping a thick folder on the table with a thud. Harland kept meticulous records. He just waited to act until he had everything in place. One of the board members, an elderly man named Harold, cleared his throat, his voice cautious. Are you suggesting embezzlement, Mrs. Martin? I'm not suggesting anything, I replied, meeting Samra's glare head-on. I'm stating facts that will be turned over to the authorities unless certain conditions are met. You wouldn't dare, Samra whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and fury. This would destroy the company's reputation. Not if we handle it internally, I said, standing and placing my hands on the table, my voice calm but unyielding. Effective immediately, both of you will resign from all positions within the company and the foundation. You'll return the stolen funds with interest and you'll sign over your remaining shares to the company treasury. Or what? Noelle's voice dripped with venom, her eyes blazing. You'll send us to prison? Your own family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've never considered me family. And yes, that's exactly what I'll do. Philip stood, his voice steady. I second all proposed actions. And before anyone objects, I remind you that between Willow's controlling interest and my shares, we have the votes. The board members shifted uncomfortably, their unease palpable. Harold spoke again, his tone measured. Perhaps we should take a brief recess to consider. There's nothing to consider, I cut in, my voice firm. The documents are ready. Sign them now or I make a call to the FBI. Samra's face contorted with rage. You manipulative little. Careful, mother, Philip interrupted, his voice like steel. Remember who's holding all the cards now. Leon approached with the paperwork, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, with hands shaking, whether from fury or fear, Samra reached for the pen. Noelle followed suit, tears of humiliation streaming down her face as she signed. As the signatures were verified, Reagan touched my shoulder, his voice low. There's something else you should know. We found evidence of tampering with Harlan's medication during his final weeks. The room went deadly silent. That's a lie, Samra breathed, but her face had gone ashen, her confidence shattered. The police have already been notified, Reagan continued, his tone unwavering. They'll want to speak with both of you. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway, not company security, but actual police officers. You planned this, Noelle accused, standing as one officer approached her, her voice trembling with rage. You orchestrated this whole thing. No, I replied softly, my eyes locked on hers. Your father did. He knew exactly who you both were. This was his final gift to the company and to me. Protection from the real threats to his legacy. As they were led away, Samra turned back one last time, her voice a venomous hiss. This isn't over, Willow. Actually, it is, I said, gathering my papers, aware of the stunned board members watching. Leon, please distribute the restructuring plans we discussed. We have a company to run. After the room cleared, Philip remained, staring at me with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. I never knew you had this in you. Neither did I admitted, my voice softening. But your father did. Reagan appeared with fresh coffee and a grim smile. Don't celebrate yet. The hard part's just beginning. Running this company won't be easy. Good thing I had an excellent teacher, I replied, settling back into my chair. Now, let's get to work. 3 weeks after the boardroom showdown, I discovered just how deep the corruption ran. My morning coffee was interrupted by Reagan bursting into my office, his usually calm demeanor shattered. Someone's been accessing the mainframe, he said, dropping a stack of printouts on my desk. They're deleting records. I picked up the first page, my heart sinking. How? We changed all the security protocols. Inside help, Reagan said, his face grim. Someone's using Samra's old credentials. They still work, despite the system update. A knock at the door revealed Harold, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Martin, there's a situation in R&D. The entire development team is threatening to walk out. What? Why? I asked, my mind racing. Their funding's been cut, he said, shifting nervously. The paperwork came through this morning, apparently signed by you. I stood so quickly my chair rolled back. I never signed anything like that. That's not all, Reagan added, his voice tight. 3 of our biggest clients called this morning. Someone told them we're filing for bankruptcy. My phone buzzed, a text from Philip. Turn on the financial news now. I grabbed the remote and flicked on the wall-mounted TV. The headline made my blood run cold. Grant Industries stock plummets amid leadership crisis. It's a coordinated attack, Reagan muttered, his eyes narrowing. They're trying to destabilize the company from multiple angles. I snatched up my phone. Leon, get up here now. And bring every document related to the system permissions from the last 5 years. Within an hour, my office had become a war room. Leon spread documents across the conference table while Reagan worked with IT on tracking the system breaches. Here, Leon pointed to a signature. This authorization was signed 3 days before Harlan's death, giving permanent system access to a list of executives, including Samra and Noelle. But they're under house arrest, I said, frowning. How are they? They're not working alone, Philip interrupted, entering the room, his face grim. Mother just called me. Said to tell you this is just the beginning. I slammed my hand on the table, my patience fraying. Get me the head of IT now. 20 minutes later, a nervous-looking man named Marcus sat across from me. The permissions are hard-coded into the system. We can't override them without shutting down everything for at least 48 hours. Then do it, I ordered, my voice firm. The trading platforms, the manufacturing systems, will lose less money than whatever they're planning next. I turned to Reagan. How quickly can we get emergency protocols in place? Already on it, he said, handing me a tablet. But there's something else you need to see. These deletions aren't random. They're targeting specific projects, all connected to a development initiative Harland started last year. I scrolled through the files. Project Phoenix. I've never heard of it. Few have, Leon interjected. It was Harland's pet project, something about revolutionary clean energy technology. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. The message made my heart stop. Looking for Project Phoenix? Check the summer house safe. Better hurry. R. Reagan, I stood, my pulse racing. Come with me. Philip, stay here and coordinate the system shutdown. Leon, start calling our major shareholders. Tell them to hold their positions. We're handling it. The drive to the summer house took 20 minutes, every second feeling like an eternity. This has to be a trap, Reagan said as we pulled up to the secluded property, the house looming in the twilight. Probably, I replied, stepping out of the car, the gravel crunching under my feet. But we need those files. The house was quiet, too quiet. The safe was hidden behind a painting in the study, just like the one in the main house. My hands shook as I entered the combination. Inside was a single USB drive and another note, insurance policy activated. H. Reagan breathed, his voice barely audible. He knew this might happen. A noise from downstairs made us both freeze, footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Back door, Reagan whispered. Now. We slipped out just as voices echoed through the house, their urgency unmistakable. In the car, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. Oh my God, I gasped as the screen filled with videos, dozens of them. Meetings between Samra and various executives discussing not just embezzlement, but industrial espionage, insider trading, even blackmail. This isn't just about money, Reagan said quietly, his eyes fixed on the screen. This is about power. They've been running a shadow operation within the company for years. My phone buzzed one more time, another message. Now you know. What are you going to do about it? R. I started the car, my mind racing. Call Philip. Tell him to gather the board again. Emergency session. What are you planning? Reagan asked, his voice cautious. I gripped the steering wheel, thinking of Harland's chess moves, all leading to this moment. They want to play dirty? Fine. Let's show them how it's really done. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket as we sped back toward the city. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain. This was war. You can't be serious. Philip stared at me across our kitchen table that evening, disbelief etched into his features. I was typing out invitations on my phone, my fingers moving with purpose. A family dinner? Now. Trust me, it's perfect, I said, my voice calm but resolute. It's insane, he countered, running a hand through his hair. Mother and Noelle are under house arrest. The company's in chaos, and you want to host a dinner party? Actually, Reagan interjected from his spot by the window, his tone approving. It's brilliant. Neutral territory, witnesses present, and they'll never expect it. My phone buzzed. A response from Samra. How thoughtful. We'd be delighted. Their lawyers had approved a temporary release for a family gathering. See? I showed Philip the message, a small smile tugging at my lips. They're coming. Of course they are, Reagan said, his smile grim. They think they have the upper hand. The next evening, our dining room looked like a stage set for the final act of a play. I'd hired professional security to monitor the exits discreetly. Leon sat in the corner, pretending to work on his laptop while actually recording everything. Samra arrived first, looking immaculate despite her ankle monitor, her air of superiority unshaken. Darling, she air-kissed my cheeks, her smile as cold as ever. How brave of you to host, given everything. Noelle followed, her designer outfit barely concealing her own monitoring device. Lovely home, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. So quaint. Please sit, I gestured to the table, my voice calm. Wine. You're certainly calm, Noelle observed, taking her seat, her eyes narrowing. Considering your company is falling apart. I poured the wine carefully, my movements deliberate. Is it? Strange, our stock has actually stabilized since this morning. Samra's smile flickered, just for a moment. Temporary, I'm sure. Like your house arrest? I sat at the head of the table, meeting her gaze. How are those ankle bracelets treating you? You smug little, Noelle started, but Samra touched her arm, silencing her. Let's be civil, Samra purred, her voice smooth, but laced with menace. After all, we're family. Speaking of family, I said, pressing a button on my phone. The dining room TV flickered to life. Let's watch some home movies. Their faces went pale as the first video played Samra in her office, discussing insider trading with a board member who'd since disappeared to South America. Turn that off. Noelle demanded, her voice shaking. Why? It gets better, I said, switching to another clip, Noelle meeting with competitors, sharing proprietary information. Harland had quite a collection. You're bluffing, Samra's voice trembled slightly. Those could be doctored. The SEC doesn't think so, I said, placing a folder on the table. They're very interested in these videos, especially the ones about Project Phoenix. Philip, who'd been silent until now, leaned forward, his voice tight. What is Project Phoenix, Mother? What was so important you had to try to destroy the company to hide it? Clean energy, Reagan answered from the doorway, his voice steady. Technology that could make fossil fuels obsolete. Worth billions if it works. If you turn those videos over, Noelle's voice was quiet now, dangerous, you'll destroy everything. The company will never recover from the scandal. Unless I took a sip of wine, my eyes never leaving hers, we have a different kind of family meeting. One where you tell me everything, and I mean everything, about Project Phoenix and your other operations. In exchange, these videos stay private. Samra laughed, but it was hollow, lacking conviction. You're blackmailing us? I prefer to think of it as negotiating, I said, pulling out another folder. Sign these full confession, complete cooperation, and in return, the videos never see daylight. And if we refuse? Noelle challenged, her eyes blazing. I pressed another button. A new video played, this one showing Samra discussing Harlan's medication with someone off-screen. Then I stopped protecting you, I said softly. Everything comes out. Everything. The room went silent, except for the damning conversation playing on the TV. Philip had gone completely still, his face ashen as he watched his mother discuss his father's death. You wouldn't, Samra whispered, her voice barely audible. It would destroy Philip too. Try me, I said, sliding the papers closer. Sign. Noelle grabbed the pen first, her hand trembling with fury. You're just like him, you know. Harland, always 3 steps ahead. He taught me well, I said, watching as Samra finally reached for the second pen, her movements slow and defeated. Oh, and one more thing, I added, my voice calm but firm. Project Phoenix launches next week, under my direct supervision. You found the blueprints? Samra's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. In the summer house safe, I said, along with everything else we needed. I stood, gathering the signed confessions. Dinner's over. The officers outside will escort you home. As they were led out, Philip turned to me, his voice quiet. Did you really find Project Phoenix? Better, I said, pulling out the USB drive. I found proof it already works. Your father had a prototype. It's been running the summer house for months. Reagan whistled low. So that's why they were so desperate to stop you. They wanted to bury it. I nodded, my mind already racing ahead. Keep the old money flowing. But Harland had other plans. And now? Philip asked, his voice soft but steady. Now, I said, thinking of all the chess pieces finally falling into place, we build something new. Something better. Just like your father wanted. The security footage showed Samra and Noelle being driven away, their faces illuminated by the setting sun. They'd played their last hand and lost. Now, it was time to reshape the future, their future, my future, the company's future, into something worthy of Harlan's vision. The Project Phoenix press conference was set for 2 p.m., but at 1:30, everything went to hell. The prototype's gone. Marcus from IT burst into my office, his face pale with panic. Someone broke into the summer house lab last night. I was already reaching for my phone when it rang, Samra's house arrest officer. Mrs. Martin, we have a situation. Your mother-in-law's monitor has been tampered with. She's gone. Isn't she? I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. Yes, ma'am. And she left a message. Check the stock market. I switched on the TV just in time to see our stock price plummeting. The breaking news ticker screamed, Grant Industries CEO accused of corporate espionage, anonymous source releases damaging documents. They leaked everything, Reagan said from the doorway, his voice grim. But they altered the documents, made it look like you and Harlan were the ones stealing technology. My phone buzzed again, Noelle this time. Did you really think those ankle monitors could stop us? The press conference should be interesting. Where's Philip? I demanded, my heart pounding. Right here, my husband entered, looking grim. Mother just called me. They're going to the press conference with proof that you murdered Dad. They doctored his medical records, Reagan explained quickly. Made it look like you were the one tampering with his medication. I slammed my hand on the desk, my patience at its breaking point. Get Leon up here now. And call Harold. I want the entire board on an emergency video conference in 5 minutes. The next 20 minutes were chaos, board members arguing over video chat, lawyers scrambling through documents, PR teams trying to control the spiraling narrative. The press conference starts in 30 minutes, Leon reminded me, his voice tense. If we cancel. We're not canceling, I said, standing up, my resolve unshaken. We're changing venues. Call everyone. Move it to the main auditorium at the estate. The estate? Philip looked confused, his brow furrowing. Because that's where Harlan kept his real insurance policy, I said, turning to Reagan. The study safe, the empty one. The day of the will reading. What if it wasn't empty? What if Samra took something then? Reagan's eyes widened, realization dawning. The original confession videos. Exactly, I said, grabbing my keys. And I bet I know where she hid them. Philip, come with me. Reagan, stall the press. Leon, get me police backup at the estate. The drive to the estate was tense, the air thick with anticipation. As we pulled up, we spotted another car, Samra's. They're already here, Philip whispered, his voice tight. We found them in Harlan's study, Samra and Noelle tearing the place apart, desperately searching. Looking for these? I held up a set of videos I'd retrieved from behind the safe, a hidden compartment Harlan had shown me months ago. How did you? Samra spun around, her face a mask of shock and fury. Harlan told me all his hiding spots, I said, my smile grim. The safe was a decoy. He knew you'd check it the day of the reading. It doesn't matter, Noelle sneered, her voice dripping with defiance. We have enough evidence to destroy you. Fake evidence, Philip stepped forward, his voice steady despite the betrayal in his eyes. Did you really think Dad wouldn't protect her? That he wouldn't see this coming? He was sick, Samra spat, her composure crumbling. Confused. You manipulated him. Actually, a new voice joined us. We all turned to see Reagan in the doorway, holding a tablet. Harlan recorded everything, including your conversations about killing him. He pressed play, and Samra's voice filled the room, chilling and unmistakable. The medication switch isn't working fast enough. We need him gone before he can change the will. Philip staggered back, his face ashen. Mother. It was business, she said coldly, her eyes devoid of remorse. He was going to ruin everything we built. No, I corrected her, my voice steady. He was going to expose everything you stole. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. It's over, Reagan said quietly. The board has already seen the real documents. The press is on their way here instead of downtown. Your little scheme is finished. You can't prove anything. Noelle's voice shook, her bravado faltering. Really? I played another video, security footage from last night, showing them breaking into the summer house. The prototype is a fake, by the way. The real one is safely locked away, another of Harlan's chess moves. The police burst in, this time with federal agents in tow. Samra and Noel Grant, an agent stepped forward, his voice authoritative. You're under arrest for conspiracy, corporate fraud, and suspicion of homicide. As they were led away in handcuffs, Samra turned to me one last time, her voice a venomous whisper. You think you've won? You'll never be one of us. Never. Good, I replied, my voice calm but resolute. Because I don't want to be. I want to be what Harlan saw in me, someone who could make things right. The press arrived just as the police cars pulled away, cameras flashing as I stepped up to the podium, Philip by my side. I was ready to tell the real story of Project Phoenix and the future of Grant Industries. Ready? Philip asked, squeezing my hand. I thought of Harlan, of all his careful planning, of the faith he'd placed in me. Ready. Behind us, the sun streamed through the study windows, casting long shadows across the floor. It felt like an ending and a beginning all at once. The truth was finally coming to light, and with it, the chance to build something new from the ashes of the old. The autumn wind whipped around the cemetery as I placed fresh flowers on Harlan's grave, the morning paper folded under my arm. Its headline announced Samra and Noel's guilty verdicts, the culmination of months of investigation. I wish you could see it, I whispered to the headstone. Project Phoenix is changing everything, just like you planned. He knew it would. Reagan approached from behind, his footsteps crunching on fallen leaves. The board meeting's starting soon. They're voting on the expansion today. I traced Harlan's name with my finger, a quiet moment of connection. Did you bring it? He handed me a sealed envelope, found in Harlan's personal effects, marked for today's date. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph, me and Harlan in his study, taken during one of our early lessons. On the back, he'd written, "The future isn't about where you came from, little bird. It's about where you choose to fly." Mrs. Martin, Leon's voice called from the cemetery gate, "They're ready for you." The boardroom felt different now, the suffocating tension replaced by an energy of anticipation. Harold beamed as I entered, pointing to the latest profit projections on the screen. Project Phoenix has exceeded every expectation, he announced. The Clean Energy Initiative has tripled our market value. And the foundation? I asked, taking my seat. Completely restructured, Leon reported. The new charitable programs are actually helping people now, not hiding offshore accounts. Philip squeezed my hand under the table, our marriage stronger for having faced the truth about his family. There's something else, Reagan stood, his voice somber. The FBI finished their investigation into Harlan's death. They found proof that Samra had been planning it for over a year. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation settling over us. On the table before me sat Harlan's old chess set, which I'd moved to the boardroom after taking over. I picked up the queen piece, remembering how he'd taught me to think several moves ahead. The press is waiting outside, Leon reminded me. They want a statement about the verdicts. Let them wait, I said, standing to address the board. There's something more important we need to discuss. Harlan left one last project proposal, something he called legacy. I distributed the folders I'd prepared, my voice steady. It's a complete company restructuring, employee profit sharing, sustainable practices, ethical investment guidelines. Everything he wanted for the future, but couldn't implement while fighting the corruption within. Harold adjusted his glasses, reading intently. This would change everything about how we operate. Exactly, I smiled, my confidence growing. No more old money games, no more family dynasty politics, just solid business built on innovation and integrity. The old guard won't like it, Reagan warned, but he was smiling too. The old guard is in prison, Philip reminded him, his voice firm. It's time for something new. The vote was unanimous. As the board members filed out, each stopping to shake my hand, I felt Harlan's presence in the room. He'd seen this moment coming, had prepared me for it in countless small ways. Ready for the press? Leon asked, holding the door. I gathered my papers, then paused at Harlan's old chair. From its height, you could see the entire city sprawling beyond the windows, all those lives we could impact, all the good we could do. Actually, I said, a plan forming. Let's do the press conference at the Summer House lab. Show them Project Phoenix in action. Let them see what the future looks like. Outside, the autumn sun broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the city. My phone buzzed. A message from the prison warden. Samra wanted to meet. Are you going to go? Philip asked, reading over my shoulder. I deleted the message without responding, my decision final. Some chapters need to stay closed. Reagan appeared with our coats, his voice brisk. The cars are ready. The press is already gathering at the lab. As we rode down in the elevator, I thought about that first drive with Samra, how she'd looked down on me, never imagining I'd end up here. The letter Harland had left me that day still sat in my desk drawer, its message now crystal clear. Trust yourself, little bird. The nest was never big enough for your wings. What are you thinking about? Philip asked as we stepped into the lobby, the glass doors ahead buzzing with camera flashes. I took his hand, facing the waiting crowd. I'm thinking your father would be proud, not just of what we've accomplished, but of what we're about to do next. And what's that? He asked, a spark of hope in his eyes. Change the world, I smiled, my voice filled with determination. One project at a time. The doors opened to camera flashes and shouted questions, but this time, I wasn't the outsider trying to fit in. I was exactly where I was meant to be, carrying forward a legacy built not on family names or old money, but on the simple, powerful belief that doing good was good business. Harland had known it all along, and now, finally, so did I. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.